I just wanted to introduce our guest again. He is an experimental elementary particle physicist and a professor of physics at Vanderbilt University. Please welcome Paul Sheldon. Yes, okay, and we also have Zach Paul here tonight who works at Bellport. He's going to moderate the discussion with Paul, and then I'll run a mic for questions in a minute.
So I have to say that one of the things I really love about the movie is when the novelist says you feel like you're just jumping from failure to failure with undiminished enthusiasm. And that's quite often the way it feels, but when something remarkable happens and you get to glimpse something that's never been seen before, it really makes it all worthwhile. The other thing I loved the young postdoc that they feature in this film, the experimentalist. I feel like I understand a lot of what she was talking about and resonated with what she said. I felt like when I was young, I was also the one who loved to get in and climb around on the detector, make things work, put things together. And I love it how she talked about when she first saw the massive Atlas detector, and she said it was this massive thing, and yet I knew it was all custom designed, all hand built, all hand soldered. And there are people here at Vanderbilt in the physics department, working in the physics department, who actually participated in that, who did that, and contributed in a very significant way to building the inner tracker, the silicon tracker, made up out of thousands and thousands of the little silicon chips that are inside your digital camera that do tracking at the very central part of the detector. We have people at Vanderbilt contributing to that and doing that. That detector had to be monitored. Just imagine turning on a million channels of electronics and having to get them all at the right voltage without the whole thing falling apart. We had people who worked on that called slow controls. They had that wonderful pictures several times in the movie of protons colliding and all these squiggly lines coming screaming out. Those were the path, the tracks, the particles created in the collision, but that's not what you see. What you see in the raw data is the tracks go through the detector, the particles go finally through the detector, they deposit energy in bits at different parts, and so what you have is a million points distributed in a three-dimensional volume, and someone has to go in and write a computer program to figure out, to do the pattern recognition, to figure out which hits went with tracks, and to reconstruct those, the flight paths of those particles and figure out which ones went with which. And that's a tremendous challenge, and we had one of the leaders of that effort is here at Vanderbilt. The other thing they talked about, the 100,000 computers distributed all over the world, that's an amazing thing. It's this vast array of computing hardware, networking hardware, and software that takes the many petabytes of data being generated every year and distribute it to computing centers all across the globe where it's processed and analyzed by physicists. And it's really an amazing thing. I can sit at my desk at Vanderbilt, log into my computer, submit a job, and that software takes that job, breaks it up into 1,000 or 2,000 smaller jobs. Those jobs get shipped off to computers all around the world where they're processed, and the results analyzed, and sent back to me and collected together and presented to me as a single result, as if all that computing was on my desktop. It's really an astounding thing, and that offline and grid computing is another thing that we contributed to significantly here at Vanderbilt. And in fact, just up the road here at the Yeager Computer Center here at Vanderbilt is a central part, a major part of the computing that's done for the CMS experiment worldwide is done here at Vanderbilt. In fact, we just kicked off a big run today of production of initial analysis of the data to produce physics products that physicists can then use to do analysis for an important conference that's coming up in May. And I asked my colleagues who were going to be here tonight if they were going to be here tonight to send me an email, so I know there's no hope I was going to be able to see them in the audience. And I want to read their names, and I'm hoping when I'm done they'll stand up and we can recognize them, because it's not obviously just me, it's a large group here at Vanderbilt who contributed to this, I think, significant project. Eric Appelt, who's a graduate student. I used to joke with Eric that I had lunch with him more often in the CERN cafeteria than here at Vanderbilt. I don't think that's true anymore, but it used to be. Andres Delanoy, he's a graduate student. Spent 2 years at CERN. And CERN is actually an official tour guide for CMS. In fact, he should probably be the one up here answering your questions. Bill DeBella, Professor Vicki Green, Professor Will Johns, who I'm not sure if he was going to make it. He wasn't quite sure he was going to make it. Brad Franklin, Julia Lokoska, Professor Julia Lokoska. Robbie John, graduate student, and Professor Med Webster. We also have, I think from Anchor, we just kicked off this run, and I'm not sure he was going to make it. He maybe they're trying to keep things working. From the Computer Center, a computing professional, Matt Binkley, said he was going to make it. We also have a special guest. We have a group of graduate students visiting this week, today, a group of undergraduate students from all across the country who are potential graduate students here at Vanderbilt. We're trying to attract to come here and do physics, not just this physics, but all kinds of other physics. And we actually have a collaborator here, someone who's been working on CMS already 2 years, John Sandy. He's from Texas Tech as an undergraduate. So if they can stand and maybe. They will help me answer these questions. I think that's the best way. I think we'll get the best answers if we answer them. I hope you'll feel free to comment.
So, I mean, judging from the number of people here in the room, it's obvious that this is, and throughout the film, it's obvious that this is a massive undertaking. The biggest machine man has ever made. It's just startling to see so many people involved in this process here tonight. And just imagining all the theaters around the world right now that are premiering this film with you guys in the audience. It's pretty astounding. This is one of mankind's biggest undertakings. And to sort of bear witness to the findings and to have it come out the way it did, it's pretty marvelous that we're living in this time. So, you work with CMS and you've been to CERN, correct? Can you just explain, there's that wonderful moment at the beginning where the postdoc is going in and explaining the feeling of seeing and being at CERN for the first time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, CERN's actually an interesting place. I worked at several labs, national labs and facilities right in my career. And CERN's a very interesting place. It's, the buildings are old. I always, it looked very Soviet to me, actually, when I first went there. I was kind of surprised. And it is interesting. They show pictures of the halls and so on. It's an old, a lot of things are old. They put all the money into the science, and I think it's very much true. But it's also an amazing place because, and it was great because tonight at dinner we were talking, and the graduate students were talking, if you have a problem, something you can't figure out, just go down to the CERN cafeteria and you can almost randomly walk up to anybody and they can probably help you answer it. It really is a tremendous and amazing thing. And the other thing I really love is the international flavor. It really is true. All the nationalities, and you have friends from all that you and colleagues, respected colleagues that you meet and know from all across the globe. It really is an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it's fantastic in the film when they're talking about all these countries who are bitter enemies, but at CERN they're working for the greater good, for this common passion for wanting to just purely scientific just approach this. It's pretty astounding in the film, and I'm sure in your personal experience as well. Can you tell us just a little bit about what it is you do specifically with CMS?
Well, so my big, the thing I work the hardest on is that software, the grid computing and the offline computing, that's the part. So in particular, the data movement part, getting large amounts of data, transferring them, in a distributed fashion all around the globe, and it's really is an interesting problem, moving the equivalent of several thousand movies a day between CERN and Vanderbilt, and that's just one place that the data is being moved. I mean, the digital equivalent. So we move 30 terabytes of data without thinking about it in a day from CERN to Vanderbilt in order to analyze it, and that's all part of the thing. So that's something that I've been very interested in. And then from the science part, again, I got to agree with the postdoc, supersymmetry, that dark matter. I mean, that's really the thing we've got to figure out. That was the thing I was interested in before the gigs. I felt like dark matter is the thing. It's an amazing thing. You look around you, everything you see is made up of atoms, protons, electrons, neutrons, the seats, yourself, the air. That's 10% of the matter of the mass of the galaxy. 90%. We don't know what it is. We have no clue. We have lots of great ideas, lots of theories, and we're hoping we're getting close to figuring out what it is. But right now, we don't have any idea. To me, this is what I like to talk about: 5 mysteries for a new millennium. That's one of them. I mean, it's really an astounding thing that we know so little about what's out there.
So what would the conditions be for finding or explaining dark energy? I mean, like what?
So dark energy or dark matter?
Dark matter.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Dark energy is just a name. We know so little about dark energy, we just had to make up a name as a placeholder until we figure out what it is. Dark energy is really crazy, but dark matter, so how do we know? No, that's okay. Dark matter, so I think the leading candidate is supersymmetry, although the theorists here at Vanderbilt don't like that model, they like a different one. So when we talk about it at Vanderbilt, we like to say that supersymmetry is a prototypical model. It's an example of the kind of thing that we should be looking for that motivates us of how to look. But basically, what we're looking for are rare processes, just like the Higgs, that only happen every once in a while. And the real big problem is all the routine things that happen in these collisions, figuring out how to filter all that out so that you can just see the very rare things.
So would that take form in, additional particles, or would it be?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So as I said in the film, every normal particle, in supersymmetry at least, would have a super partner. So the electron has this electron, quark has the score, and so on and so forth. And so there would be a super partner for every one. And it sounds crazy. In fact, it's one of the things that people don't like about the model is it basically automatically doubled the number of fundamental particles. And the whole idea of science and nature that we think is that it abhors complexity, it likes simplicity, that things should be as simple as possible. And so when you automatically just come in and double the number of particles, it seems a little bit bad. But it has a very nice feature in that how do I want to say this? Without that, you have to believe in an incredibly fine tuning. The Higgs mass is just way too low. Higgs mass should be many orders of magnitude higher than it is, and without the supersymmetry, what supersymmetry does is it basically brings in cancellations in the calculation. If you have a long stream of addition of numbers you're adding, and some of them come with a plus sign and some of them come with a minus sign, you can imagine that at the end it might come out to be roughly 0. But if they all have plus signs, it's just going to get bigger the more terms you add. What the supersymmetry does, in a way, if you will, is add the minus signs. So.
All right, I guess we'll open it up for questions. Allison's going to bring this mic around, so raise your hand.
Okay, I'll bring you the mic.
So you're going to be, or not you, but the Large Hadron Collider is going to be doubling the energy of the beams. What do you hope to find with the double energy?
What do we hope to find with the higher energy?
Yeah.
Well, so what higher energy does for you is, so when you're colliding things like protons, protons aren't fundamental. They actually have 3 quarks inside the protons, and so you're colliding the quarks. And the quarks can be of a variety of energy. How do I explain this? It could be of a variety of energy. So what you're doing,
A little bit.
sorry. So what you're doing is, by raising the energy, is I guess what I would say is you're just increasing the probability that you can produce rare things. The more massive something is, the easier it is to produce if you've got higher energy in the beams. It's like climbing higher on a mountain and being able to see farther. Maybe that's the best way to say it.
Okay, any question?
Okay, kind of to ask a question about how you see this as a film. When you got up and you were making your initial remarks, you were commenting on how much it shows the results, but it doesn't show the process. And you told us a lot about what the process of science is that's not shown there. And that was something that struck me in this, is you saw a lot of PR events, and you saw a lot of eye candy, but you didn't actually see scientists doing science, barely at all. And you didn't get a sense out of this that finding that Higgs is the result of actually a method of putting an argument together with logic and evidence. And this is very different from a lot of other science documentaries, like Chasing Ice, for instance, where you really see the assembly of an argument. And do you think the cinematographer or the director could have possibly made a movie that really would show that process of science and give a more compelling sense of how is it that we know that this thing that they found, this little bump, is actually a Higgs?
So I agree that nova may do a better job of what I thought this show did in a very real way was talk about some of the human parts of science, and I think in a very powerful way. I mean, like I said, the whole thing about Demopolis, right, and instilling that, well, here I've been spending 30 years on supersymmetry, and I could be wrong tomorrow. And the whole idea of, and of the theorist at the end, David Kaplan at the end, where he says, all my models are wrong, and that's great. I mean, I think that that's an important part that you don't often get out of it. So I think it's a complementary vision. And I think it's very, to me, it was very powerful. It spoke to me, and I certainly resonated with a lot of things I saw.
Okay, back here. Hi, Dr. Sheldon, thank you for being here. I have a two-part question. My understanding is you're a part of I think you're leading an interdisciplinary team out of Vanderbilt. It's 5-pronged. It includes the medical community. That's a part of all of your research that you're leading. Am I correct?
I'm not
I'm
correct.
sorry. Are you a part of an interdisciplinary community out of Vanderbilt that's looking at the implications of things like the Higgs boson, including for the medical community?
No, well, so I'm a member of the Department of Physics. I do some interdisciplinary work in the sense that I do computing and so on, other disciplines, but I'm not sure I know. And I certainly collaborate on those projects, on computing projects with people in the medical center. But in terms of the physics that I do, it's really mostly the physicists in the physics department.
Okay. Well, I was looking at your website out in the lobby, and I'm not sure what your relationship with the medical community is, but I'm very curious as to what, regardless, you think the implications might be for everything we're learning here and the medical community. And my particular interest is in mind-body medicine, but what does all of this mean for our individual health care? And if all of this is going on, do I need to ask that in another way? I'm not a very good question asker.
No. And I think the answer is pretty much one of those given the movie. We don't really know what the implications are going to be, but that you have to do it in order. And I really love the analogy to radio waves. We didn't even know what radio waves were when they were discovered. Now, of course, we think of them as, a powerful communication tool. But we didn't know what that was when we discovered it. I think the things that we're discovering and understanding, I'm pretty confident will pay off at some point, but it's probably going to be a long time before we really understand the implications and see benefit in healthcare or economics. I think, well, the economic payoff, I think, is immediate. We know that investing in science is an investment in our economy. We know that it actually is a major driver of economic growth over the last century. So we know those things are true, but that's maybe in some sense an indirect benefit of investing in science.
Another question over here?
Yeah, Paul, would you talk about the organizational effort and of putting together the computing that goes into this?
Yeah, it's really quite an extraordinary thing. It's a lot like earning tax because so we have this facility at Acre, and John, you're part of that in a sense. I mean, you're working in IT, and you're a wonderful help and helping us succeed. But it's funny because that's, Vanderbilt has its goals and missions for that facility, and there's another one in Nebraska, another one in Florida. There are, 35 in Europe, all across the globe. Each one is an individual facility run by the people there, and somehow they have to get, how do you coordinate all of that and make it happen? Get data to move, get everybody to agree to do what they need to do, and there is a tremendous amount of administrative and organizational work that has to go on all the time. Constant meetings, constant discussions, letters of commitment to doing certain things and so on. It does take a tremendous amount of just constant organization to make it all work. And it's all, in the end, it's all at the bleeding edge, so it all ends up tending to be pretty brittle, and it breaks a lot. And it's, making it work, it takes a lot of people on the ground, working at 3 in the morning, getting up, run, telephone ring, get up, drive to work, cycle a power supply or something to make something work. I mean, and it is a tremendous amount of work. And I have to admit, sometimes I just stand back and make them wonder how it all holds together for us.
A couple more quick questions.
I had a couple questions. One was about the computing. Tim Berners-Lee work, his work became the World Wide Web. I wondered if the grid computing, any of the technologies getting its way out into the public as a whole, and also what's the cosmological constant and its significance?
I'm going to ask someone else to answer this out loud. Because that's an interesting question in and of itself. Maybe, anyway, he's going to answer one point.
Okay, we got someone there who's going to move that question.
There we go, yeah.
Okay, so it's a very interesting story. My name is Momchil Volkovsky. I also work at Vanderbilt. Einstein predicted the cosmological constant when he created his general relativity in 1915, but later he predicted it because he wanted the universe to be static. So it's not, he immediately saw that his equations mean that either the universe is either expanding or shrinking. And when people saw a few years later that the universe is expanding in reality, he said, oh, this was my biggest mistake. But then the cosmological constant came back, and first it came in particle physics. People saw that there are some kinds of energy that have very interesting properties, like they have negative pressure, and that's very strange. That's not a normal matter. And in 1998, in fact, astronomers saw that the universe is accelerating, the expansion is accelerating. And right now, this accelerating expansion is, the explanation is they say this is the dark energy. So dark energy is the modern term of Einstein's cosmological constant. Well, it may be something else. We don't know exactly what it is, so that's why Paul said this is a placeholder. But the data looks almost exactly as Einstein's cosmological constant. They're very right on the mark. Now, this doesn't help because we still don't know what it is. We have a word for it. And I don't know if you noticed in the movie, I mentioned in particle physics, people predict this type of negative pressure, some matter with the same properties as a cosmological constant. But it is a billion times bigger, wrong. So, and this is the same theory that has also the most precise predictions in the history of science. So that's a real puzzle. Our best theory also gives the most wrong prediction, and nobody knows the answer. I don't know if Paul will confirm this. Nobody knows why it's that. So we're really at the threshold of revolution. This has to be explained at some point, and nobody knows how to explain it.
The thing I love about relativity and about this accelerating expansion of the universe is that over time the stars are going to slowly start leaning out. It's really true. In other words, it's not that the stars are moving individually, it's that space itself is expanding. The fabric of space, just like the bread part of the blueberry muffin, right? The blueberries aren't moving so much as the bread is expanding and the muffins are moving. Well, that's what's happening to the stars. The fabric of space is expanding, and the stars are moving away from us faster and faster. And at some point, they're going to be moving. They're going to move back beyond our event horizon, and they're going to move out of our sight, and we won't be able to see them anymore. So over time, the stars will fill the week out. This is true. kind of an interesting.
A question down here. We'll pass it on.
Well, you spoke at, when the LHC increases its energy, you spoke of certain particles that you're hoping to find. I was just wondering if the so-called weakly interacting massive particles, which many people consider a possible candidate for dark matter, if those would be one of the particles you're looking for, and if so, what the approximate mass of those particles would be in giga-electron volts?
Well, we know where they're not, and that's really all we can say. So if you want to, and I know it sounds sort of big flip, but it's not. We set limits on the masses of particles at, anywhere from 300 GeV to, 700 GeV, depending on the model or parameters of the model. But that's sort of the mass scale that we're talking about, a few hundred GeV are the kind of things we're hoping to find. And it's, it could be supersymmetry, it could be lots of things, but yes, we're hoping that one of these particles, that if there is a family of them, or if there's just one, will be dark matter. So that's absolutely true. There was another part of your question, I can't remember.
We've got so many hands, so go ahead.
When you're doing a particle acceleration, how do you prevent data from other particles and they get picked up in this world from contaminating your experiment?
You don't. You have to, well, you do best. But you also have to figure out that that's going on and filter it out, if you will. That's just part of the background. So, in fact, when protons collide, it's not one proton and another proton. You really have bunches of protons circulating in either direction. And when the bunches cross, it actually turns out that there are multiple interactions per crossing. And all of them, on average, are uninteresting, because you're looking for rare things. And so it's only every, a few thousand collisions or a few million collisions in which one of those is interesting. So yes, you're right. So it actually just ends up being those thousands of particles you're streaming out. Some of them are from different interactions, and you have to find a way to filter that out, or you have to figure out a way to account for how they influence the things you're measuring. So it's called pilot, and it's something that we're facing that's getting worse and worse all the time, and we have to have pilot corrected this and pilot corrected that. It's a lot of hard work.
Sorry. Okay, so we know that we don't know how gravity fits in with the other three fundamental forces of nature. What kind of experiments can we do at the LHC to understand how gravity fits together in physics?
So, that's actually a great question, because that's actually one of the big problems with so-called standard model, is that it includes we think there are four, other than the Higgs field, we think there are four fundamental forces. Gravity is one, the strong force which holds the nucleus together, electromagnetism, charged things, and then weak interactions responsible for nuclear decay. Three of those things fit nicely in the standard model, and it works all great. And we're having a really tough time with gravity. In particular, we're having a tough time building a quantum model of gravity. One of the big ideas that's got a lot of people excited is something that would have been thought of science fiction not that long ago, extra dimensions to space, so that we live in a three-dimensional world, but we're really no different than an ant crawling on a sheet of paper. That ant lives in a two-dimensional world, that sheet of paper. Well, the idea is our three-dimensional world is a membrane in a larger dimensional space. And there's some hope, and Marshall disagree with me, but there's some hope that we can understand gravity by thinking of it as a force that acts in all the dimensions of space. Because one of the big problems with gravity is it's just way too weak. It's so much weaker than the other forces. And so the idea of hope is that it exists in other dimensions. Now, what are the ramifications for LHC? Well, there's a lot of them. There are different models that people predict that would predict resonances that we could see in the experiment. We've actually looked for some of those at Vanderbilt, in fact, have published papers ruling out so far, not ruling out some of these models. The other thing that's really cool about it is that if you bring two particles close enough together, the gravitational force can actually see these extra dimensions, and you could have two quarks interacting gravitationally, but but in a very strong way because they see these extra dimensions at very close distances, and you can produce many black holes, which would then, they're too small to swallow the whole universe. They would actually evaporate away, but you can see the Hawking radiation from the evaporation, for example. And so we produce many black holes in the LHC, and we can see those, and that would be a strong indication, if you saw something like that these extra dimensions did exist. So that's sort of one answer, and I think there are theorists up here that would give you a bit of an answer.
I think we have time for one more question.
The question I have is about the antimatter. Does the Higgs boson have a twin?
Does the Higgs boson have a twin? So like.
Oh, a twin, right, no, great question. Excellent question, everything seems to, right? So the electron has an anti-electron, for example, maybe you mean that, or. So the Higgs actually turns out to be its own anti-particle, so it's sort of its own. Now, that's actually not entirely true, so it is. Well, so you would, again, nature abhors complexity like simplicity, you would think, well, there would be one Higgs, but actually in the minimal standard model, there's actually more than one. There may be a doublet, or there may be a fourplet of Higgs particles. So I'm not sure if I answered your question. But that's
Why I asked that question, I'm very interested in the confirmation of non-locality. And what does this say about non-locality? Is non-locality only existent within the dimensions in which the Higgs boson may exist in other parts of the universe? Or may not be?
Now you're getting maybe a little over my head. Non-locality, you're talking about local symmetry, local gauge symmetry?
I'm talking about the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen prediction that is finally proven in Orly that it does signal its twin faster than the speed of light.
Right, actually, Vicky, that's something you thought about a lot. So you can put you on the spot if you want to talk. I mean, you've thought about that a lot.
Yeah, we'll cover that.
No? Okay. I mean, that's actually
That's Moncho.
Okay. Moncho, you want to talk about non-locality and Einstein?
I'll bring it up.
No, you can come up.
Oh, yeah, come on. Yeah, come on. This is a good Q&A.
Oh.
Well, I cannot say much because first I will say it's amazing that nowadays we can do in undergraduate lab this famous experiment that was written in 1984 to test the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen effect. And it's really very weird. It seems that two particles are speaking to each other faster than the speed of light, and then one can show pretty easily using special relativity that if you can send information faster than the speed of light, you can send information in the past, etc. Fortunately, it is understood that in fact you cannot send information faster than the speed of light. So it's very weird. Feynman says it's not a paradox, but it's a very weird thing. And non-locality is one way to explain this. Explain this using some realistic things. Like there's some small clockwork, and it has definite state. Quantum mechanics denies this, and Einstein was very unhappy with this. So that's why he proposed this paradox. And this experiment that we do in the undergraduate lab, now it tells us that no, there are no hidden parameters, at least local. So the only way out is this non-local hidden parameters. But unfortunately, I don't know much about this, more about non-local hidden parameters. There are some theories. There is one theory from 1950. There was a very interesting physicist who had his own version of quantum mechanics, which is identical. It predicts the same things. His name was Bohm. Yeah, David Bohm. Yes. So David Bohm, his quantum mechanics has non-local hidden parameters. But unfortunately, things doesn't seem to have moved much from 1950 to now. So that's what I don't know much about non-local hidden parameters.
So just a real quick question while you have the mic. Are you an experimentalist? Or all right.
I'm a theorist.
They can coexist. Well, it's been really great talking to you. Would you like to add anything in conclusion, or?
Yeah, no, I don't know that well, but I would say science, what I love about the movie is that it shows why we should all care about science. And you not tell us the scientific process, and John is exactly right about that. It shows the day-to-day grind and how hard it can be. But I think it certainly spoke to me about why we should be doing science and the excitement and the value that we get out of it.
Well, science for science sake and science for humanity. So, and if you like this movie, I do have to plug our future events. Next week we've got Primer with Robert Chera from Vanderbilt as well, speaking about time travel and quantum physics and all that stuff. So he's a theorist. He's a theorist. And additionally, if you like seeing massive feats of ingenuity and coordination and mankind going above and beyond its tiny little minds, come see For All Mankind. It's about the Apollo missions, it's home movies, and it's absolutely wonderful. If you want to see science on screen, come out to those, come out to our kids shows, come out to our midnight movies. Thanks so much for being here, and thanks Paul.